On the show, Bet US College Football Picks and Predictions, three guys sat down to talk about the West Virginia Penn State football game, which is coming up in a week. These are also three guys that have no idea what they're talking about when it comes to the Mountaineers, and Couz and I are going to tell you why right after a word from our sponsor. This episode of Mountaineer Paul Talks Football is brought to you by Dutch Miller Automotive, where friends and family pricing means you get the best deal right up front on any new or pre-loved vehicle in stock every time. With brands like Chevrolet, Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Kia, Hyundai, Ford, GMC, Buick, and Subaru, the Dutch Miller Automotive family is always growing and ready to put you in the car or truck you've been searching for. Check out our inventory across West Virginia at DutchMillerAuto.com or come in today to the home of friends and family pricing, only at a Dutch Miller Automotive store near you.
This is for Cameron.
What is up, guys? Welcome back and welcome in. My name is Mountaineer Paul. You know him from Couz's Corner, Hoops from the Hills. And he was told via Joey Foster about a thing that happened. It actually happened a little while ago, but since the Penn State game is coming up, we thought we would talk about this because it's really a subject that basically kind of goes like this. When three guys sit down and they don't know crap about what they're talking about and they just spew out a bunch of useless, meaningless stuff to people they're trying to educate on how to bet properly, yet they don't know the subject in which they talk about. It's just as plain as that. Couz explained to our viewers exactly what I'm talking about here, some of the stuff they said, and I know you got a clip and everything prepared, and then we'll react.
Yeah, basically, you got three guys here, Parker, Gary, and Hunter, right? And they do this football picks and prediction show. It's a pretty good show. I've watched a few episodes of it. The guy, Parker, has been on my show before. He's a TCU guy, does a lot of data analytics. No issues with him, all right? Gary, the guy in the middle, pretty fair guy. He's pretty much the host of the show, but he seems to be he's trying to be fair to West Virginia and give them, talk them up a little bit. Parker has some interesting information, and for the most part, doesn't say anything too out of the way, but he does share one bit of information that's totally inaccurate, which we'll get to in a later clip. But in this first clip, the guy named Hunter, who's a guy he'll be on your far right as you're watching this clip, he just I don't think he's done any research or watched about West Virginia at all before doing this. I'll be honest with you, because some of the things he says is not even accurate. And let's play this clip, and then we'll react to it real quick.
Squirrely, get a little sideways. Could we see something closer than maybe the spread would indicate?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, West Virginia's in a pretty bad spot. I like Neil Brown. I think he's a good coach. Fit hasn't really worked there. I don't think he's a bad coach. I think that's just not working out. West Virginia hasn't recruited well enough, and there's a lot of questions about their offense. I mean, how's West Virginia going to score points? I know Chad Scott, the new offensive coordinator, wants to run the football a bunch. The question is their offensive line good enough and their running backs good enough that they actually can run the football?
All right, I'm going to stop it right there.
What?
Can they run the football?
I mean, if you were going to name a strength for this year's team, Couz, what would you say it was?
Well, I don't even know if in any particular order, 1 and 2, the offensive line and the running backs.
And it's not close. And we've got 4 former freshman All-American, 2 actual full-fledged All-Americans, and a guy that a lot of us, maybe 1 or even 2 guys, possibly, depending on who breaks out. And that's not even including others that haven't proven themselves yet that really don't merit into this conversation yet. But obviously, C.J. Donaldson is very much a household name. For the most part of the Big 12, most of us believe he will be much, much more than that as the year goes on. And obviously, Jalen Anderson being that other guy with C.J. right behind him. They would all start at, 85% of all Power 5 places. C.J. starts anywhere in the nation. Alabama, name it. He probably starts there. It's just my opinion, but Couz, I know you've got a lot of stuff you want to say also.
Yeah, I mean, I just and talks about Chad Scott wanting to run the ball a ton. Yes, he's the offensive coordinator, but guess who's calling the plays, Kyle Hunter?
Yeah.
Neil Brown.
Yeah.
Not one time did he mention that. Okay, and I understand not everybody's going to know that, right? But here's my opinion: if you're going to do a betting show where people are putting their money down on the line, that's why I don't do betting shows. Okay, I do preview shows and prediction shows, but not one time do I tell you, "Hey, go place your bet here." I'm not a betting show. I don't claim to be, right? If you're going to do a betting show, you should probably do more research on the team you're talking about. Just my opinion, okay? I'm sure Kyle Hunter's a good dude. I don't know the guy, right? I guess he's a Utah fan and has an Ohio State. Who's he root for, Ohio State or Utah? I don't even know if he can make up his mind. But anyway, I just really took exception to those comments. Let's play some more, and then we'll react to some more.
Consistently, Penn State's defense is good. I don't know that West.
Oh, wait, and by the way, look at Parker. I like Parker's facial expressions the whole time Kyle's talking. I don't know if he's agreeing with Kyle or thinks Kyle's an idiot. I can't figure it out. But anyway,
he keeps doing that.
Virginia's going to be able to move the football very easily here. The question mark for me, too, is, I mean, that's not even to say anything about the fact that West Virginia's defense is a massive problem. I mean, the defense is probably worse than the offense. So
can't argue with that.
33 points allowed per game last year, second worst defense in the Big 12. I don't see a lot of improvement coming on that side of the ball.
I don't agree with it, but it's fair.
Penn State, Drew Allard takes over, obviously 5-star recruit.
What any thoughts on his comments about the defense, Paul?
Well, I mean, how would he know? Because he doesn't even know who they are. He doesn't even know the players we added. Yeah, I bet you couldn't ask him if he knew one starter. And, of course, his rebuttal would be, I'm looking at the analytics and the data. And that's the problem you get into with these guys is they get so deep in the data, and you'll see them start spitting out some stuff here. And to me, personally, I'm an eye test guy. I will mention some numbers for sure. I believe numbers are fair and in certain situations can even be more important than the eye test. But generally speaking, what I see is what I go off of. These guys just view football differently because they're betting. And unfortunately, they're talking about a spread here and not who's going to win, who's going to lose. And so they go off a bunch of different wonky stuff that, to be honest, I don't even know if I put a lot of faith in or stock in.
Yeah. All right. Now, the next clip is from Parker, who, like I said, Parker's stuff is – I don't think Parker's is as bad as Kyle's, but he does make one glaring error. And you'll hear that in just a second. Let's go ahead and I'm going to play this clip.
As Kyle brought up, this is a strong Penn State team. It appears to be – maybe the window for them to strike and potentially win the Big Ten again. The quarterback is as hyped as I've ever seen. They appear to have hit on the recruiting trail and the transfer portal, but as we've mentioned, pesky West Virginia seems to find ways to stay in games that they're not supposed to. Tell me what you're seeing here, Parker.
Definitely circling the buy-in factor for West Virginia, as it does seem like the writing is on the wall for the Neil Brown experiment. And so I think later in the season, we might be thinking about the care factor. Or the Q word, if one were inclined to use it. But early on here, I think they'll be hype. I think they believe that a fresh start can happen. Maybe that JT Daniels was a little bit of malaise on there. But I mean, this defense is 111th in EPA per play. I mean, it just wasn't very good. And I think the talent differential here is pretty substantial. As West Virginia's recruited like a very good G5 team, frankly, and not like a Power 5 team. And
has absolutely no freaking idea what he's talking about. That statement right there. That pissed me off more than any statement on this whole show.
Actually, we had a teleprompter.
West Virginia is recruiting like a good G5 team and not a P5 team. Well, Mr. Parker Fleming, I've got some data for you. Since you like data so much, I've got some data of my own. All right. The 2024 class so far, West Virginia is 47th in the country. All right, 47th. It's not elite. I get that. But West Virginia doesn't recruit like Alabama, okay? But based on his comment, he said we're recruiting like a good G5 team. Guess how many G5 teams have recruited better than West Virginia so far in 2024? Paul, how many do you think?
I'm going to venture out on a limb and say 0.
A big, fat, freaking goose egg, Parker Fleming. Guess how many, and here's a list of Power 5 schools behind West Virginia so far in the 2024 class. Here we go. It's a long list, so be patient. Arizona State, UCLA, Kansas, Wake Forest, Syracuse, Louisville, Baylor, Oklahoma State, Missouri, Washington, Iowa State, Michigan State. And that's not even all of them. Now we're going to go to the 2023 class, Parker Fleming, where West Virginia recruited 48th in the country. Okay, not great, right? But how many G5 teams, Paul, recruited better than West Virginia in 2023?
0.
Here's a list of schools that West Virginia recruited better than at the Power 5 level in 2023. Oregon State, UCF, Pitt, Vanderbilt, Virginia, Boston College, Georgia Tech, Wisconsin, who, by the way, has Luke Fickell as their coach, Oklahoma State, and Wake Forest. And that's not even all of them. Now, I didn't list off schools for these next three, but just to give you an idea, in 2020, West Virginia had the 37th best recruiting class in the nation. 2021, it was 42nd. In 2022, it was 35th. Right now, there are 69 teams in the Power 5. There were 65 teams in the Power 5 until, obviously, there were 4 more that came in this year. So, to say West Virginia recruits like a good G5 team is absolutely, positively, 100% inaccurate. And that's surprising coming from a guy like Parker, who is a data guy. He's a data analytics guy. Numbers is what he does. So, Parker, my guy, you're wrong on this one.
Well, I mean, obviously he was taking a shot, and it's frustrating, man, because I think it's another piece to basically it's an echo chamber. That's what I call this. This is a part of the echo chamber. You get into, I just did a show on this probably a week ago, something like that, where I talked about the disrespect in the media for West Virginia and how it's become an echo chamber, because at the end of the day, people just begin to parrot one another. You read that West Virginia has a defense that looks like the size of a MAC team, and then all of a sudden you start to hear what they just said. You see it pop up in Athlon. You see it pop up in other places. And really all it is people piggybacking off of one another without really any real info. Season hasn't been played yet. Everybody's doing preseason predictions. And so everything's going off of last year. Transfer portal's so new that you can't really, I think, yet put a real – from one year to the next, there's really no way to know how these players are going to perform, because I think Marquise Noel, even though it's basketball, is a great example of a guy who was a D2, D3 guy that came and ended up being one of the best point guards in America. Bailey Zappi. Bailey Zappi's an example of another guy that went from a D2 to Western Kentucky and led the nation in passing yards. So there's really no way to measure how impactful players are going to be that maybe come from smaller area schools. TCU had a couple hit last year. A lot of guys think Anthony Wilson, who's a Clay Helton product, is going to be maybe one of the best players in this defense this year. I don't expect those guys to know who Anthony Wilson or Keyshawn Cobb are, or Montre.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, to an extent, I get it, but it's just when you're doing a pick'em show or a betting show or anything like that, please know what you're talking about. At least know some of the players' names so you can sound like you do.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah, and I have no problem with them saying West Virginia is probably going to get blown out. I have no issue with them saying West Virginia's defense doesn't appear to have gotten better. I have no issue with any of that, because that's all opinion. But when you start spitting out what are supposed to be facts, like they're recruiting like a G5 team, it's just wrong. It's absolutely. And I know I'm a West Virginia fan, and some people are going to get on here and say, well, you guys are just biased and you're whatever. Yes, maybe I'm looking at it through gold and blue glasses, but like I said, I don't have an issue with people being down on us because we've not been winning like we should be. I get it. But these are facts they're getting wrong here. Chad Scott is not calling the plays at West Virginia. They're not recruiting like a G5 team. Their running back and offensive line are the best parts of this team. Now, if he had said, well, West Virginia's offensive line and your running backs are going to be the strength of their team and should be really good, but I don't think they're a good matchup for Penn State, that's a whole different conversation, right? Is it not?
Yeah.
But to just go down there and say, well, I don't think they're going to be able to run the football or they're all – it's totally – it's just completely bonkers.
He's actually wrong in saying that Penn State's small on the defensive front as well. Just pointing that out.
And see, I didn't even catch that part.
Remember when we had Alec on our show? Yeah, he said they were small. Alec came on our show and said they've had several guys bulk up to 285, 290. So, I mean, they may be small-ish, but they're not tiny. We're not talking about the 335 that, like, you know, that Jeff Castile and those. Like, we're not talking about Scooter Berry, Chris Neal. Like, we're not talking about, you know, guys like that where they're like 250, 265. Like, you know, they're probably closer to they're 290, 295. So I just felt like that was a little inaccurate as well. But if Penn State is small up front, then it would lead to Zach Frazier's an animal. I mean, you can say anybody else on our line may not have a future, and I could see a possible avenue for that. Even Doug Nestor, even Wyatt Milam, who is right there on Zach's heels, in my opinion. But you can't tell me that Zach Frazier is not going to be a pro for 10 years unless something happens to him. I guarantee it. He's going to be a good player in the league. He's a good player now that's been on a bad team. And I hope he gets his flowers this year because he really has a chance to win the Remington Award just like Dan Moses did. He really has that shot.
Yeah, absolutely. But, all right. Well, I don't really have anything. By the way, I dig the new logo.
Thanks, man. Yeah, if you guys didn't know, actually, Brad from Voice of Morgantown had his media guy make that for me, and I couldn't turn it down. So they did a really good job. I was proud.
Great.
I mean,
and awesome. The coonskin cap, man, just an awesome add-on to that logo. I love it.
I agree. It did a good job. So, guys, if you haven't subscribed to Mountaineer Paul Talks Football, we ask that you do that. Like the video. You know, as always, we have to feed the monster, as I call it, feed the algorithm. Otherwise, YouTube does not really push your video if nobody's liking it, obviously. And last but not least, guys, comment below. How did you feel about what these gentlemen said on the show today? Were you up in arms over it like Couz was? Were you more towards the middle like I was? Where I was mad about it, but I wasn't as mad as Couz was. I mean, how did you feel? Let us know. We would certainly like to know, guys. And once of all, we always appreciate you guys. Football season's right on its heels. We're basically, it's 11:36 at night where we are on a Saturday. That means it's down to 6 days, guys. It's time. So let's go. Let's see what really happens on NBC. And by the way, if you watched the Notre Dame game today, you'll see the halftime show and the pregame show. It's not looking good for us on that one. They gave the preseason prediction on that. One of the guys is a Penn State alum. Another guy's a Pitt guy. So, yeah. All right, guys. Well, we thank you guys for watching. This has been another episode of Mountaineer Paul Talks Football. This episode is over. We are out.